let me give everybody just a word of advice. If you're not planning on doing something and putting it in play for 90 days
Mm-hmm.
with an adequate budget, don't do it. And I don't care if that's billboards. I don't care if that's newspaper. I don't care if that's running Spotify ads.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, this is the thing. You've got to go through and having a like business. Unfortunately, there's risk involved and you're trying to figure out what makes work.
Hello, everybody. This is Christina Hawkins from the Moving Marketing Results and the Lift Your Moving Marketing podcast. Appreciate you hopping on. And today we're talking with Josh Wheeler from resultsdrivensolutions.com. He is a Facebook, or I should say, meta ad expert. He's been doing this for many, many years. He's helped hundreds of different companies. He's our coach and consultant when it comes to Facebook, Meta, Instagram, and we use him exclusively really for Facebook ads. Since we personally do not do Facebook ads, it's too complex. And I believe that belongs to a company that does that solely. And Josh Wheeler is that person. So stay tuned. It's a pretty long interview, but we go into really good depth about meta ads, how to manage them, what to look for, some mistakes that we see people make, the sales process, the customer journey, all the things that go into a really good meta ad. So stay tuned. And if you haven't done so, please like and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you. And here's Josh Wheeler. All right. Thanks, Josh Wheeler, for hopping on the interview. Appreciate this for the podcast, the Moving Up podcast, Lift Your Moving podcast. Appreciate you taking out the time. Josh is an expert in Facebook ads. I've used him multiple times just for consultation. He's helped me get out of some sticky situations. And full disclosure, our company, Moving Marketing Results, we do not do Facebook ads. Josh is our go-to for that. And it is a complicated platform. I recommend anyone that is getting into Facebook ads to use someone like Josh because it's just very complicated. There's a lot of work involved. It just goes into many different areas. What we're going to do is I'm going to ask Josh. Hi, Josh.
Hey,
Hey.
thanks for having me. Thank
Yeah.
you
So
for
tell us
having me
about
on.
yourself. Yeah. Tell us about yourself. How you got into all this.
Yeah, in a nutshell, I'm kind of an ad nerd and ad geek. Got into this with Facebook back whenever they were just running what we call right column ads, right? So when you look at the platform, they were only ads on the right hand side, and they're
Mm-hmm.
those little tiny bars, and I don't even think they have them anymore. But we started then. That was about 2010, give or take. We've been running on them, and of course, as they bought. Or as Meta now instead of Facebook, as Meta as a company has bought Instagram and WhatsApp and those types of companies, we've been able to expand like the service offerings a little bit on that side. But we went in and quite frankly, it's a lot more complicated now. You'd mentioned that it's a lot more complicated now than what it was back in the day. Now there's so many things with AI and automations and different things like that that it can get a little overwhelming sometimes whenever you're in the back end platform. And they've tried to make it simple for certain people. I'll go into that a little bit of how that part is done. But for the most part, we've been at this now for about 15 years or so. I actually grew up in a family business. I got into all of this promoting for my business, right? We owned a sign company
Mm-hmm.
for about 25 years. And that's the reason why we got into ads and that type of stuff very early on. At the time, it worked. Like they were cheap and it was awesome. Didn't have a huge amount of people that were coming through. Funny enough, at the same time, we used to run, I don't even think they do this anymore, but yellowpages.com used to have a service that you could do pay per call, right? To where
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, oh, every time that they generate a call, you just pay whatever that is that you bid for it, just like you would on Google or something like that. And it was really kind of a cool thing. But between that and Facebook, that's where we got started. Now we help out a lot of people all over the country, whether through our consulting or coaching or even
Mm-hmm.
delivering services, which we don't do as much anymore. Most of the time, we stick in the consulting and coaching side of things. But there's still some few people that we are able to help out in bigger ways.
Cool. Yeah. Tell me, why did you decide to go all in on Facebook? I mean, what was it about Facebook? You're like, rather than some people that do Google ads, some people do,
Mhm.
different types of digital marketing. Why just Facebook ads?
Well, I wish that I had a really good answer for you for that, but I think it's happenstance,
Mm,
right? At the time in 2010, it was just one of the things that were new. I was like, if for those of you who remember MySpace, like I wasn't huge on MySpace, but it was like that next iteration.
mhm,
Um, At the time, we had a band and we had started working through Facebook and some of those things. And it just really was a happenstance thing to where it's like, okay, this seems to work well. So let's just continue to go. I happen to be one of those early adopter kind of people. If I see a new platform, I'm always into it. And then if we start using that platform and start seeing results, then we can go through again. At the time, we were running primarily ads for our own business
Mhm.
between, things for awards or custom apparel or signage or that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And we saw that it worked. And because we were running basically a marketing service at that point, it's a different type of marketing, right? For branded products and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But we just started offering that to our clients. Say, hey, would you like some help with your online presence and things? And so basically, what we would do is just get them set up on Facebook and start running ads for them because it's very inexpensive. And quite frankly, I really didn't I really didn't charge that much, more than a couple hours because that's about all that it took on a monthly basis at that time because there just wasn't that much to it.
Right.
Um, but my job was just to try to get them to sell more stuff because then they could buy more signs or they could buy more, they could buy more swag. And
Mhm.
that's what we did. It was one of those things that we really got started with it just because it provided cheap results and then as they grew
Yeah,
revenue.
back then it was super cheap. I remember I did Facebook ads way, way back then. You were
Yep.
helping me untangle my mess because I had done it for so long. I had all these different methods of accessing it.
Yep.
And so at the time, I remember telling my clients, if you're ever going to do Facebook ads, now's it. It's just only going to get more expensive as we get going and more complicated and more in depth. So yeah, I did the same thing. But then after they made these big changes recently with the user interface and how you connect and who can do what, it just got really messy. I just can't
Oh
keep
yeah.
up with it.
Well, and
It's
I think that that's the challenge, and I will tell
yeah.
everybody right now is that if you are going through and you've had an agency, you've had somebody set your stuff up, you always want to make sure are setting you up as an admin
Yeah.
as part of that because like if you don't do that right now when they first started out, or even if you already have it, make sure that that's happening because you may look 5 years down the road and one of your staff people set this thing up and then they don't work for you anymore.
Yep.
And now you're trying to track them down to be like, how is this working? As soon as it like, and that goes for any platform really. I mean, I know we're talking Facebook today, but any
Any
platform,
platform. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
make sure that you're always added as an admin as
Mhm.
part of that structure because if not, it can cause you problems later on.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. So what is what's the basics of Facebook advertising? When we first started, I think you had a really good idea of separating out display ads versus search ads. Kind of how
Yeah.
and obviously gearing it toward moving companies, which again back with the customer journey, how what
Yep.
that difference is.
Yes, that's a real interesting thing that a lot of people don't realize is that when they get started, they're like, "Oh, well, should we go do Google? Should we go Facebook? Should we like what should we do?" Right?
Guarantee. Yeah. Should
And
I go buy leads
there's
here? Put
just
my company.
tons of different ways that you can do it. And what it really comes down to is what your end outcome is and a little bit about the service itself. Let me explain kind of what I'm talking about. When you're looking at doing ads, you have display ads, which is typically what you would see on Facebook, Instagram, websites that are around. They call them banner ads, but you'll see those little things on websites. If you go to your local TV station or newspaper or something like that, you'll see these little things. A lot of time, local businesses,
Mhm.
TikTok, YouTube, any ads that you see on there, that's really what's going to be considered display. In that realm, if you had a newspaper ad or a billboard, that stuff is also considered display, right?
Mhm.
Because it's just there, right? It's trying to get your attention, trying to kind of interrupt you a little bit.
Mhm.
And that is something that we say that feeds demand or generates demand. These are things for the most part that people may not know that they need, or they're looking for a solution provider, and it gives people greater context. We'll talk a little bit about that before we get off of the show today, talking about your buying cycles and awareness and that kind of stuff, which
Mhm.
everybody like. I'm going to get into some not technical stuff, but things that you really do need to think about because that is the one reason why most ads fail is
Yeah.
because we're saying the wrong things to the people at the wrong time,
Right.
right? So you've got display ads, which is just generating demand. And then you've got things like, well, search ads, right? Display and search. Search ads are going to be Google, Yahoo, Bing, any of the other ones that come up if you use Brave or if you use, DuckDuckGo or anything like that. Any search engine that has ads, that's what those things are going to be for. Now, typically we say search ads meet demand. One generates demand, one meets demand. It's not a question of what should we use in this particular case. One feeds the other, right? So if you are running ads on Facebook, people will see that and then they'll be like, ah, I'm interested in that. They will go to Google, start searching for it, and then bam, you show up there. It never would have happened. The Google search never would have happened if the Facebook ads were running. And
Mhm.
I see that all the time where one is feeding the other,
Mhm.
right? Now, when you go through and you look at search ads, most of the time search ads are going to be most effective when you have some kind of a trigger action or event that happens that triggers a search. So, for example, if you were in a car accident, you might go search for a personal injury attorney or a body shop or a chiropractor, right? There's people that are there that event happens. If
Mhm.
your pipes bust at your house, you're going to go look for a plumber or water restoration place or something like that. Something happened and then you need to go find somebody. Moving is one of those things that it doesn't necessarily have that trigger action, right?
Right.
Now, the trigger action might be I saw your Facebook ad and now I'm going to go search. That could be the trigger action. So that's one of the reasons why, even though you might not think that it's going to be super effective because people aren't searching for it, you want to make sure that people are searching for you rather than just movers. Like, so if they're just doing broad searches, they're going to search for movers or moving company.
Mhm.
And unless it's like most of the time they're looking for information to get started with. Those are going to be some of the most expensive clicks that you have. Not that they're ineffective, but you really want to educate people and kind of take them through this process with something that's less expensive. Facebook, Instagram, any display ads are always going to be a little less expensive because they may not have as high as intent. Okay. Now, when we talk about the system that you're building, I like Facebook, for example. I'll give you Facebook. One of the targeting mechanisms that you can have in Facebook is moving companies. Like they're interested in moving companies. If they were on websites of moving companies or if they're looking for new homes, like Facebook gives them kind of like a sphere, right?
Mhm.
To a industry sphere. Okay.
Right.
If I'm looking for home improvement and I'm searching for those kinds of things, then it's going to put me in the home improvement sphere. I'm going to start getting ads. Same thing. If I'm looking for new houses, if I'm like
Mhm. Yep.
moving related things. So I
Yep.
can
New
actually go in and
job.
choose
Mhm.
people who are interested in moving companies.
Mhm.
There's a variety of other interests that you can get in there,
Mhm.
but you can target people who uh, in your local area may already be looking for that. All we're wanting to do is take that, put something in front of them that says, hey, we guarantee we have some kind of a certain dollar amount protection. I know people buy insurance and I know that there's other things in the industry that you guys can do. But one of the biggest things that I think that we find is that whenever we try to talk to people, we say, call to get a quote, call to get a quote, call to go get a quote. Why? Well, we run into these issues where, and these are called platitudes, words and phrases that are used as powerful and something that is meaningful, but they're overused. It completely takes away it will almost generate a kiss of death for any ads or any marketing that you
There's
do.
nothing, it's almost like you want to rub them the wrong way just a little bit so that their
Yes.
shackles get up and they notice it because
Yep.
anything else is just white noise and you just scroll, scroll, scroll.
That's
Because you're,
exactly it.
yeah, because you almost want to be somewhat controversial, not mean,
Yep.
not overly, but just something they go, what did you
Yep.
just say? And I think some
Well,
of,
I'll
mhm,
give you an example. I'll give you an example of that.
yeah.
One of the ad angles. So whenever we are looking at ads, we always look at hooks and angles.
Mhm.
Hooks and angles are the things that catch your attention and then get you to take the next step.
Right.
The entirety of an ad process is to take the next step.
Mhm.
If the very first thing I want to do on Facebook, for example, I want you to stop the scroll. When you're on your phone and you're sitting there thumbing through things or whatever, I
Mhm.
want you to stop the scroll first. That's it. My image has to be stopping the scroll,
Right.
right?
Half a second. Yeah.
Right? The second thing I want you
Right.
to do, because what happens is you go from the image and listen, this is proven. And for anybody who's watching, you tell me anything that you looked at on Facebook when you're scrolling through the phone, the very
Mhm.
first thing you do is you look at the photo and it stops. The next thing you do is you come down underneath it. If it's got a little headline or if it's got something right underneath it, you look at that for clarifying information. If
Mhm.
that's interesting, you come back to the top and you read the rest of it,
Right.
right? That is the natural flow. No idea why.
And
Like
then comments. And
some
then you go to
really
comments.
right. Some really smart person said, hey, we need to make things work this way. Because usually
Right.
headlines go at the very top, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
images on Facebook is what stops people.
Mhm.
Well, you can go through and you can use a hook like, um, most moving companies screw you over. Like that would be
Mhm,
the first line. If I'm looking for a
mhm,
mover, I'm like, most moving companies screw me over, and that attracts my attention. That
mhm.
gets me perked up. I'm like, what's the deal with that? Because I'm looking for a
Mm,
moving company.
mhm,
And it's like, here's the 5 ways they do it.
mhm,
An
mhm,
ad, put the 5 ways. Now, if
mhm,
you want to try to eliminate this, maybe it's time that you call and get a quote from somebody that does X, Y, and Z. And like you can start building in some of those things that you did do differently. For example, we were talking about platitudes. If you use platitudes and say, we're we operate our business with honesty and integrity.
mhm.
Well, if I could say, well, I would hope so, don't say that.
Right.
Right. That's one of
That's
our
every
plat
moving company. I'm
that's
like,
one
if you're not doing those things, then you're out of business. Yeah,
yes. It's
it's
like
the bottom
everybody's
level standard.
yes, right? That's a standard. If
Mm,
somebody says we have quality service, again. Now, if you unpack that a little bit and you say, okay, why is it important? Well, because most moving companies don't care about your stuff and they're not treating you with honesty and integrity
right.
and
Right.
XYZ, right? So you have to unpack that a little bit. If you're doing that, then maybe it's okay, but it can't just stay at that top level. Now, we like to try to take those things that consider yourself an attorney in the court of public opinion. Okay. When you're an attorney, you have to prove somebody's case. Either they're guilty or they're innocent, and you're trying to prove something one way or the other. So what do you use? You use evidence, right?
Mhm,
So you're going to use the words that you use. You're going to use the background that you have. You're going to say, okay, have you helped over 5,000 people move
mhm,
without incident?
mhm. Right.
That's a proof point. You're going to use testimonials and reviews. You're going to use these things
We've
inside
driven a
of
million miles over Texas,
yes.
without, incidents. Yeah, yeah.
Well, and because it's
Perfect
like,
word.
listen, you don't drive a million miles unless you're good because people don't hire you.
Mhm,
Right. And I think that that's an okay thing for people to say, like, listen, we've been in business since 1976. I don't like to use things like that at all
mm,
because there's
mm-mm.
always somebody that will be in business since 1975. Right. Or whatever it
Even
is.
the combined experience stuff, like we
Yes.
combined experience of 100 years across 5 people. I just don't.
Doesn't it doesn't matter. People don't
No.
care. You really have to look at it and try to put yourself in their shoes.
Mhm,
This is all messaging, by the way. And we talk about messaging because it's like at this point, it doesn't matter if it's Facebook ads or Google ads or anything like that. The messaging is literally the most important piece of what
right.
it is that we're talking about here. So I know we started the day talking about Facebook ads, but when you start using these fundamental things, it's like, okay, Facebook can do targeting and it can get you into the right circle, right?
Mhm,
As far as who can buy. But we want to make sure that we're having the right kinds of people come in and buy. Now, here's an interesting thing that I think a lot of people think about is that we don't want to offer discounts. We don't want to offer different things like that because it devalues our business. Now, I understand that. I have a business. You have a business. Like we understand the concept of what that means because like we don't want people to feel like we're cheap. The issue is that nobody knows and has had experience with you, we have to give them an incentive on why they should actually come in to start working with you to begin with. Because all these great things that you say that you are, they don't get a chance to experience that until they work with you.
mhm,
So, however, we can give them that experience on either the front end or we give them an incentive to say, okay, come in, right? Sometimes when we're using Facebook, and this will get into the kind of the offer creation, right? A little bit is that Facebook has something called the Facebook ad library. Okay. So you can go to, I believe it's facebook.com/ads// library. I believe is what it is. Like put in the show notes whenever, whenever
right.
the
I'll
thing
put it.
gets over.
Yeah.
Right. But, but what you can do is that you can look up your competitors to see if they're running ads, but you can also just do keyword research. If somebody says moving company or
Mhm,
movers,
mhm,
and then your town or your area or your state for that matter. If you just did that, anything that's in the ad copy that has movers with your city or state or whatever it is that you put in will show up. And you can start taking a look at what other moving companies are offering. And either you have two choices on number one, you have to meet the market um, what they are already expecting.
mhm.
Right? If they're expecting $1,500 off your move, for example, and that's what everybody else runs, it's a bare minimum. Just because you don't want to offer it doesn't mean that you can't not offer it because everybody else will be like, well, I'm not even going to talk to you. I'll talk to one of the other people who I'm going to save $1,500. Right.
Right.
So I think that there's little things like that that you've got to know at a basic level what the market kind of expects because once they click on an ad or once they start seeing an ad or people they're in the market, they're going to see ads from a lot of different people.
Mhm,
Same thing with Google ads, right? Google ads stacks them right on top of one of the other,
mhm.
right? So you see those ads right side by side so you can compare offers and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Offers are not there
Mhm,
to ruin your margins or anything like that, but unfortunately, they don't know who you are. That is the reason why. And I want you guys to ask yourself when people come in and you typically ask them, this is something I find all the time. We'll say, "Hey, where are your customers coming from? What's your close rates?" Like that kind
yeah.
of stuff. And their close rates are always really good, 60, 70, 80%,
Mhm. It
right?
depends, but yeah, some of them don't even know it, but yeah, it's typically it depends.
Yep.
I've got 30% all the way up to 60% for
Mhm.
sure, but usually that's all really based on how quickly they answer the phone, tell you the truth.
Answering the phones or referrals,
Yes.
right? And
Yep.
that's the reason why their close rates are so high because there's already built-in trust.
Right.
There's already somebody's like, "Hey, somebody told me that you guys did an awesome job
Mhm.
for them, and I
Sure.
want to go through." You've already got some trust built there.
Mhm.
Whenever you're running ads, you don't have that same level of trust. When you're running ads, do not expect them to close at the same rate that your referrals are closing.
And I would think it would just take longer. The problem I run into is folks run it for a week, a month, that's it.
Yes.
It didn't work. It didn't
Yep.
work. Same thing with Google ads.
Let me give everybody just a word of advice. If you're not planning on doing something and putting it in play for 90 days
Mhm.
with an adequate budget, don't do it. And I don't care if that's billboards, I don't care if that's
Mhm.
newspaper, I don't care if that's running Spotify ads,
Mhm.
I don't care what it is. It's
Mhm.
like this is the thing. You've got to go through and having a like business, unfortunately, there's risk involved and you're trying
Mhm.
to figure out what makes work. Now, if you've been in business, so here's the cool part. You've been in business for 60 years and we start asking you, what do people really care about? What do people come to you and say like, "Hey, I used this place in the past and this is the problems that we had."
Mhm.
Right? We can start taking some of that feedback and develop the messaging side to match up with that because we put that in front. It's like, hey, 65% of the people that have issues with movers have issues here, and this is how we've solved them. Give us a call. We'll give you a mover. This is one of the things that I love using for Facebook is some kind of buyer's guides, right?
Mhm.
So at the initial front end, like, hey, listen, if you're in the market and you're looking to move and you're not interested in moving all of this stuff yourself, or if you're not trying to do that part of it, here's the things that you really need to know about when you're hiring a mover in order not to get hosed or not to get screwed or like however
Mhm.
strong the
Sure.
language is that you want to
Yeah.
use. But
I would say super strong.
here's like I wouldn't and unfortunately just because the way the humans are wired I always go more towards a negative route on that because I could say like hey
Mhm.
here's how to have the best experience possible. Now
Mhm.
internally when people come in that's usually what they get. Oh, here's what you need to do to have the best experience with us possible.
Mhm.
But whenever they're on that initial buying phase and say okay now
Because
I
typically they come in with an already negative view of movers,
yep.
just natural. They
Mhm,
assume that they show up late. They assume they jack up rates at the very
yep.
end. They assume they're going to break it. That's just always in most people's heads, and it's really up to the mover to relay those fears
Yep.
from that very second, the moment they hear of your business, you have to immediately relay those fears of like, no, no,
Correct.
no, we're different than that. We really watch it all the way through to the point you close the door behind you after you've moved. That entire process has to provide that whole experience of like we're the best you've
Yes.
ever worked with. And especially when you're starting out. And Facebook ads, I think, yeah, you're right. It's like you kind of come out in the negative because that's what's in their head from the first
And
get go.
you're trying to invalidate objections as well, right? You're
Mhm,
like, okay, well, what objections do they have to using a mover to begin with? Right
mhm,
now, we've all had these experiences with companies that are in industries that are bad. I'll give you a prime example. Give you a slightly different one in home services. Right? Home
mhm,
services. How many times have you ever called somebody to come work on your house and they say, "We'll be here at this time," and then they
yeah,
never show up. Sometimes they never show up ever
mhm,
again. Like you can't get
mhm.
a hold of them on the phone,
Totally
like
goes
nothing.
to
It's like
you.
it's the
Yeah.
craziest
Yeah.
thing to me. But you think about this is like, let's say that your movers are offering something as simple as, "Hey, um, we'll show up on time
Mm,
at the time we said we would and do it how we said we would, guaranteed, or we'll pay you $100 if we're late."
yeah.
Now, you may think you're like, "Ah, that's kind of hokey, whatever." But you think about this. If you show up late, now you have customers who are mad.
Mhm,
Now, if it's a couple minutes late, probably not going to be that big a thing.
mhm,
But if they're 30 minutes late, now it's just like, well, we hung around. We had to take a day off work and we had to do this. That sets you up for negative reviews. That
mhm,
sets you up for a whole lot of negativity.
mhm.
Now, I've
Yes.
taken that negativity and say, okay, I'll pay you $100 because we were late. Here's on time. Now you turn taking somebody who was upset, and now they're actually happy that you were late.
Mhm, mhm.
And quite frankly, that's the one thing whenever we go into, and honestly, I don't care if it's a doctor's office. How many times have you ever been to some place and it's like, this place does not value my time like I value my time. I've got a lot of stuff going on. I need
Yeah,
to be. You ever been
I'm
to a
just as
dentist
busy as
office
you
and
are,
they've got,
doctor.
yeah,
Mhm,
45 minutes late and you're just like, what is
mm,
happening here? I was
yeah.
like, you apparently don't like how can I schedule early in the morning so I don't get snowballed? You know how it works. You start in the morning, snowball it to the afternoon, you're like,
Mhm.
guys, how can this like we got to
I was
fix
once
this.
forgotten in a room. I completely forgotten. Like, I had to step outside. I'm like, "Hello, I'm in here still," and they literally looked at me like, "Oh my god, you're in here."
Like
I was like, "I'm out. Bye
that's
bye.
fun.
I'm not coming back."
But
Yeah.
that's business, right? When we talk about, and I'm trying to bring some of these other little examples up
Mhm,
because a lot of times businesses like your moving companies, or for all of you movers who are watching, you think your business is completely different. And there are elements that 100% certain, but business is business. You're selling a product, you had to get paid, you had to pay people, you had to pay bills. Like some of these fundamental things are all exactly the same.
mhm.
If we can go through and we can take an industry for movers, if you can look and say, what's all the bad stuff? Number one, fix it, right? Don't do that stuff. And if it comes up, then guarantee that you won't do that stuff. There probably is going to be other things that happen,
Mhm.
right? Ads are an amplifier for whatever it is that you're already offering. If you offer basic service and you put a megaphone behind it, you're still probably going to get basic results, right? Because you're offering nothing different. And then you get frustrated because, well, the tire kickers, I hate them coming around and they're just, you haven't given them
Price.
anything else to compare.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
what else
it
do
tends to
the
be a lot of price. You know, they
right?
just looking for the cheapest, and that's fine. You're going to get those. Everybody gets those.
But I
But,
don't think, it's interesting because I don't think that when it comes to your stuff, there's always going to be that 80/20, right?
mhm,
So I always take everything to an 80/20 approach. There's
mhm,
always going to be an 80/20 that people will look for price. There's going to be a huge segment of the market that they're only asking for price because they don't know what else to consider,
mhm.
right? They
Yeah,
don't
that's
know the
very true.
insurances that are available. They don't know your qualifications. They don't know, like, there's a lot of things that so you have to give them things. And that's what we love using ads for. Is
Mhm,
so when we look about this, and I want to circle back here to your buyer's journey, right? So your buyer's journey is that part where they realize, okay, at this point, I'm going to need a mover, right? So
mhm,
problem aware, they know they need a mover. They know that they're going to have something going on.
mhm,
The next step is solution aware. Like, what type of mover am I going to need? Is it going to be, because again, not being as familiar with the industry, I'm sure there's a difference between local movers and national movers, right? That's
mhm.
going cross country. I'm sure that there's some variations of
Oh,
that,
yeah.
right? What type of mover am I going to need? And then the actual provider
Mhm,
aware,
mhm,
right? Who is the best fit? At some point, you're just going to have to sell yourself. You don't need to tell them, hey, we're going to help you do X, Y, and Z for cheaper, faster, whatever. It's like those are all things that are selling you. And that is basically as close to the money as you can get. We use an acronym called UPSIDE. It's UPSYD.
mhm,
So upside stands for unaware, problem aware, solution aware, you aware, they know who you are, and then a deal or promotion.
mhm.
That's the closest to money. Sometimes people just need knocked off the
So
fence.
you're saying that each one of those is a step, the first ad,
Each
second
one
ad,
of
third ad,
those is
fourth ad, each one of them is that
correct.
part of that journey. Okay.
Each
Oh, that
one of
makes sense.
those is a step, and you would talk to people differently. Now, if for those of you who don't mind to use technology, go into something with Chat GPT, for example, just a little AI, go into it and ask it, hey, I run a moving company. Give me the messaging I should use for the 5 stages of awareness. And it will tell
Mhm.
you, and it'll make a little bit more sense to you because we can't really do it on the call today. But it's something that will make sense to you. It's like, okay, well, listen, if they are, if they're looking for a company, they know they need a mover, but they're looking for a company right now.
Mhm,
Here's the things that you want to use. And that's when we go back to pulling out, here's our awards, here's the testimonials, here's whatever, because you're selling yourself at that point.
mhm,
Prior to that, if they're not to that point, if you're selling yourself, but they don't know what type of mover they need,
mhm.
then there's a message disconnect. And then that's when things don't work. Or people try to use an ad that covers all the bases. It
They do
covers
one
all of
ad.
those things.
Yeah, that's
And when you do
typically
that,
the
sometimes
yeah.
those things work just as ineffectively because you're
Mhm,
trying to do too much in one
mhm,
ad.
mhm.
We have people all the time that will run ads and they say, well, these ads aren't producing sales. Ads are not supposed to produce sales.
Mm-mm.
They're supposed to have somebody raise their hand
Mhm.
and give you
Mhm.
somebody to talk to that's interested.
Mhm.
Now, we call those marketing qualified leads.
Mhm.
Marketing put out there, I'm interested in that. And now we need to get on the phone with them to run them through what we would call sales qualified, SQL. Sales
Yep.
qualified means that yes, they do have a need. Yes, they do have the right budget.
Mhm.
But you got to work that through the sales process. So that's the second part. And I know it's interesting because the ad ecosystem, when you're running ads, people think, oh, we're just going to run ads.
Yeah.
The success of your ads has as much to do with your sales process and
Mhm.
your follow-up process and the business processes that you use to
Mhm.
bring them in and help facilitate them to a sell.
I
The
find
success ties all of those things in. So when people go through and they say, well, this ad, somebody raised their hand.
yeah.
Awesome. Because that's what it was supposed to do. Now, if you have a lot of people raising their hands and they don't have the budget for what it is that you sell, then there's one of two things that you have to do. We have to go back to our targeting and we had to show it to different people.
Mhm.
Okay. Which may be the case. It happens from time to time. Or we had to figure out how to serve those customers. Now, me personally, I like to find ways to serve those customers. Hey,
Right.
listen, we've got a lower entry level, moving package that does not include these particular protections, and
Mhm.
it's X amount of dollars,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So then you're meeting people where they're at. You're not trying to put them in a box like you have to do it this way.
Right.
Now, I'm not here to tell you to innovate the business and to add more packages and all those things. Not
Right.
trying to make people feel that they
Some
have
people
to
have
do
already
that.
gone through that and they realize
But those are options that you
yeah.
look at to say, okay, is my marketing working?
Mhm.
Okay, if parts of it's working, it's too expensive. Then my options are sell a lower price item to them while they're there. Or like, so the way that I would look at that is that you're a moving company and okay, they can't afford the done for you move.
Mhm.
Hey, listen, we've got this awesome selection of tools that will help you get moved if you want to do that yourself. A
Yeah, some
U-Haul.
of them
Like
will
if
do
I'm a
pack
U-Haul dealer, I'm
onlys.
just like, I'm going to downsell them into be like, oh, listen, we can help you out and get you the stuff
Right.
you need to help you do that.
Yeah, some people do pack only, some people do labor only, but really it comes down to the fact each individual mover is going to be somewhat distinct because they've already been through the whole process. If they're brand new, they're more than happy to boot pack onlys, labor onlys. As they get bigger, they'll have 6 trucks and they have to get them all filled all the time and moving. And just having labor only just doesn't quite work. So, again, customer journey, but also their journey. Where are you in your business? And one of the criteria for us is when we take on a new moving client, you have to have a salesperson. You really, really do. I can't send you 100 leads and then you're telling me they're not qualified. Well, if I listen to some of these calls, that person didn't answer the phone right. It could just be as simple, all these
Yep.
leads are coming through and they're not answering the phone as you should. Or one of our clients is trying to train everybody to answer the phone on the very first ring. And I can tell the difference,
Hmm.
really tell the difference. If somebody that answered the phone the first ring and somebody that put them
Yep.
on hold, you can hear them saying,
Yep.
man, that's a long hold time. You hear them say that. And then they
Yep.
hang up. So those little things in that whole sales process, if you're going to think a Facebook ad that you run one time with one ad and send you a bunch of, and it didn't work, you have to look at the whole
Yep.
process. I mean, that's,
100%.
yeah,
And I think that there's elements to this, and I don't mean to point the fingers at all of you. Like
yeah, no,
that is not the goal.
everybody's different.
But
Yeah.
it is one of these things where if you want to be somebody who people are looking to as the number one in your market,
Mhm.
Facebook ads can help you get there. The very first thing that I typically work with people is like, You need to be an option first.
Mhm,
Facebook allows you to and helps you become an option.
mhm,
Maybe they've got other options they can go to, but you want to make sure that at least you're one of the people that they're calling, even if it's just to get a quote.
mhm,
Your business processes on the back end of how you handle those leads coming in will be determined whether you're the option or you just continue to stay an option.
mhm,
So, to your point, Christina, when you answer the phone very quickly and people don't get put on hold,
mm,
like if that's happening pretty frequently,
mm.
then it
Voicemail.
you might want to look at hiring somebody part-time. If
Mhm,
take a look at your phone calls. When do most of these calls come in? See if you can find some patterns and say, okay, we're gonna hire somebody part-time.
yeah.
Listen, I know that people don't want to think about this and that it's a secret inside of some industries, but guess what, folks? It's like you can go through and you can hire a person that can take phone calls for you in the Philippines or in South America,
Mhm.
and you're just like, I don't know about that.
Now they got excellent English. And here's the thing too. They don't have to be moving experts. You can train them over time. All
Yes.
you need is someone to answer the phone and take the information and
Yep.
say, "Hey, listen, this is really great. We'll call you right back."
Yep.
Right? And
And
if
you
you can call them back in 10, 15 minutes,
yes,
they're happy. But pick up the phone, get all the right information. And that's the qualified, unqualified. I
correct.
think all these ads that we're all doing is way more effective if you look on the other side in terms of the sales process. But I
That
agree with
is the
you. It is
biggest, those are
working.
the biggest things. Those are the biggest things that I see that most people make
You
mistakes when they're
do.
doing. They don't
Mhm.
let them run long enough. They're just like, oh no, we can like
Mm.
this is a game. Okay.
Mhm.
This is a game. And this is a little bit of a business thing, right?
Mhm.
Is that there's when you break the steps down, there's ads, there's leads that
Mhm.
come in, how much cost per lead, good
Mhm.
diagnostic, right? It's something that good to look at.
Mhm.
But then how many people did you give a quote to? How many of those quotes converted? How many
Mhm.
people actually finished up with the process? Each of those little steps are parts in your business that requires optimization. It
Mhm.
requires a new phone script to
Mhm.
get more people to re- to oh say they're okay with a quote.
Mhm.
It takes a different script or a different process to make sure that more people. I'll give you a prime example. And Christine, I know you do a lot of this type of stuff. Is that when you look at lead automation, send out a quote, put them into an automatic follow up process
Mhm.
that indoctrinates them on why they're the best.
Mhm.
Because odds are they're probably going to go get some more quotes or whatever. But I will promise you, none of these other movers are doing that. And
Mhm.
when you start talking about the family values that you have and all the things, because most of the time, if you're independent, it's they're smaller, family run, local, kind of places.
Mhm.
I was like, talk about those things and let people know is like we're here in your community. We're not hiding from you. We don't want to do anything bad to you because if something happens, we're right here. It's not like we're
Yeah.
hiding, right? So I think that
We want
there's
your
a
neighbors and your family and your
yes.
friends. I want all of them to call us. So yeah, if we don't do
So
right.
I think there's little elements there. Now,
Mhm.
listen, everybody has had those customers that are
We all have.
a little
Yeah, we all
off
have. You
kilter
just
in
got
terms of the
it's life.
expectations or mismatched or whatever.
Yeah.
But whenever it comes to ads, those are the little things that you want to look at is that your messaging, what are we saying?
Mhm.
What's our offer?
Mhm.
Right? Because if the offer isn't matching up with where they're at in between. So if somebody, for example, if they're looking for a provider, a lead magnet may work really, really well. Some kind of buyer's guide or, free
Yep, we have
movers
one of
guide
those.
or whatever, right? The other cool part about that is that when you develop that part of it, now we can go give that to real estate agents and then
Mhm.
they can actually distribute that for you, right? It's a good little referral source and adds some value to the realtor. There's a lot of other little things that you can do
Sure.
with some of those assets as you create them. Those are the big things that we typically see on the Facebook ad side. Facebook ads can work incredibly well, but it's going to build a pipeline. This is the other side to this is that Facebook ads are going to build you a pipeline. It's going to snowball over time. You'll create leads this month. Some of them will close this month or get started. Next month, you'll have more come in, and there'll be some people coming in for month one that will buy as
Mhm.
long as we're following up, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
In month three, you're going to get some more, but then
Mhm.
some people from month two and month one are going to come through and buy,
Mhm.
right? So there's this snowball effect that happens on the Facebook or display ad side of things that they will start going through and it will produce results. That's the reason why you want to give it that kind of that 90-day process at a minimum
Mhm.
because you don't get a chance to see. I've had plenty of people that have come in, they've ran ads for 2 months and they're like, nope, we're not going to do anymore. We're going to quit. I'm like, listen, you committed to 90 days. Let's go ahead and continue on with it. I promise you're right there. And
90
then in
days.
month 3,
All of a
starts
sudden,
clicking,
there it is.
right? It happens not, it doesn't always take the full 90 days, but sometimes it does,
Well, in
right?
the movie
Especially,
industry, it's very seasonal too. So we have to be real
yes.
careful.
Yep.
And one thing about Facebook ads, and one thing I want to ask you about, you were mentioning what was it,
Yes.
uplift.
Mhm.
And, each of the journeys and that kind of, you almost have to have different uplifts for different seasons. So obviously the
Yep.
summer season is a different uplift, a different
Yep.
series of ads that you have to do. But then I don't want people to forget that people still do move in winter. It's
Yes.
not ideal,
Mhm.
but it does happen. So how can we capture those people? So I was wanting to ask you about that
Mhm.
uplift technology
Yep.
for 2 different seasons. And another thing, as we get going here, asking more about the types of ads. I know you've talked about this in the past, is people, like you have to have people on there. Videos even best.
Yep.
So we won't talk about that right now, but if you could kind of distinguish
Yeah.
the two uplifts and the seasonal stuff.
Yep. So when you go through and the types of ads that you're looking at for that part, there's
Mhm,
going to be certain things that you can do for remarketing, which is like, okay, we're going to keep people on and showing ads to people who visited our website. For
mhm,
example, people don't visit your mover website unless they're looking for something,
mhm.
right? Fortunately, that's a business model or a business service that people, it's destination based. People go to look for it when they're going to need it.
Right.
So on that part of it, you may just look at it and just say, start hammering away and start keeping it with more stuff about you, core values, mission, vision, like introduce some of your people, like that
Mhm,
kind of stuff.
mhm,
Um, the other types to that is just to basically let things run even in the slow season, throttle the budget back if you need to, let it run at 10, $20 a day. Right. That's the other cool part with Facebook. You can run it on a daily budget. You can run it on a schedule. So if you really only want to talk to people Monday through Friday, I think it's always good to run on the weekend, but hey, if you wanted to do that, you could do that, right?
mhm.
Um, and I know budget is always a big question for people, and I think that that's when you need to know your numbers. Okay. Um, we can talk about budget here in just a second of how we basically do the ad math on that.
Mhm.
The different types of the campaigns, or I'm sorry, the different type of ads that you can do. We always like to have 3 different types of ads going. We like to have, like, for movers, I want a good picture of the crew, trucks, like that type of stuff, because it feels more organic. It feels more Facebook, Instagram, like if we're running on that.
Mhm.
But then we'll also create a couple other things. So, for example, we want to do something that is a pattern interrupt because, again, our whole goal is to stop the scroll.
Right.
So, pattern interrupt could be a couple of different things. It could be something that somebody's taking a funny picture. It could be something that some, like, one of your guys is in the backs of a box truck and somehow he's hanging upside down from something. Like, there
Yeah.
could be a
Like that
variety
looks
of
odd.
things,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's like, because you're just like, what is that?
Mhm,
Right.
mhm,
And then we'll typically do some kind of a promotional ad or something like that to where we're actually making an offer. We'll use
mhm,
one of those 3 types of creative. You can do video stuff in the same way. I love user generated content. We call that UGC.
mhm.
That's going to be video testimonials from your clients. Like, so
Right.
when you are moving for somebody, you should be giving your staff phones and they should be able to do a quick little review or testimonial right then on the fly,
Right. Right.
because those are the types of things that people resonate with. Because there's something in psychology called the law of social proof.
Mhm,
The law of social proof says that when people don't know what to do, they take the actions of similar others. If they see you as the same type of person, they'll do what you do. Perfect example of this. If you've ever been to a restaurant with a couple or with a new family or whatever that you haven't been there, but they have, a lot of times you'll say, "What's good here?"
mhm,
Right? And
mhm.
then most of the time that's what ordered. I get aggravated at my wife all the time because I try to push her to try new things, and she does that all the time. She's like, "Oh, what are you having?" Well, she asked me that because she's like, "Oh, I'm always going to order the same thing to make
Right.
it easy, right?" It's the same type of approach to where when you're using testimonials, it works the same way. If you have a family, like, "Hey, we helped this family move. We'd love to help you too." If they
Mhm,
see the similarities there,
mhm,
um, a lot of times I try to do this. In your case, people that typically are their best customers, I would have them uh, look at what the similarities are. So, for example, in some areas, like in our area, we have a lot more healthcare, right? That's a very huge, dense population from a career standpoint.
Mhm.
I want to go in and I want to say, okay, if I can show that they're a nurse and that they're moving, I may want to show, I may want to try to find out and show
Right.
that part because I want other nurses to hire us
Mhm.
because they always have better incomes and that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
right? So that's
Mhm.
one way that you can get better types of clients.
Sure.
Um, but those are little things that we try to do from a creative standpoint. As Facebook and as Instagram kind of go, it's more of a visual platform anyway. So the creatives are super important. Whereas with Google, it's more text based and you don't have to worry about it as much.
Mhm.
But the creative is super important.
Mhm.
And the photos that you use and things. We try to make him as n- I say native, but like make him like a personal photo, like make it
I
feel
just
that way.
believe in the organic. I just
Yes.
to find a stock photo,
Mm,
it doesn't come across because again, it's white noise. I'm sure they
mhm.
would have seen that image somewhere else on some other mover website, and
Yep.
especially I love it when guys use the movers in blue bibs because those are for sure 100% European movers, and they absolutely do not resent anybody in the
Nope.
U.S. And
Right.
so I just
That's
get so
funny.
cringe when I see them like, oh, blue bibs, and you see it in some of these ads. But yeah, I
That's
think
funny.
the more organic, the weird, it's so weird now.
Yes.
We've just come a full 180 from 5 years ago. Whereas five
Yes.
years ago, we had to have this polish. We had to hire the videographer. And I'm okay. I say do one round of that for your
Yes.
website and your more promotional stuff. But for social, it's like that stuff's got to be off your iPhone with hiccups and weirdness and sound is somewhat, but it's,
You know,
sound should be good, but
it's
it's not
interesting. It's
perfect.
interesting how with a lot of the AI stuff now happening, it's like
Mm.
there's ways to actually create a lot of those things with AI.
Mhm.
So it's like
Sure.
if some of you guys are camera shy and you're just like, I don't want to get on video and all this
Yeah,
stuff.
sure.
There's a few things that you can help out with that that would help your team out to be more
Mhm.
effective. Like even if it's just making one video one time for us and creating an AI version of you so that your marketing team can be like, okay, like so you never have to make videos again. You can still be the video person,
Sure.
but you never have to actually make video again. A lot of interesting things happening there as well.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't
Um,
know if we're quite, well, I say in a couple years, I think you'll be able to do that. I just really feel like with that sucker out, this
mhm,
it might not be the sunniest of days. It might not be
100%.
perfect. Just get out there. And I for those that feel that I don't feel good in front of a camera, I say again, find somebody in the business that is.
Yeah.
That could be an operations manager. It could be one of the drivers who's like super into it. I mean, that would be awesome. If you can get a
I
driver.
have I have actually seen people, funny enough, I have actually seen people on Fiverr that you
Mhm.
can send them your company shirts and they will be your paid
Okay.
spokesperson.
Sure.
Right.
That sounds like a
So
good
it takes a
idea.
little bit
Sure.
more orchestration for that,
Mhm.
but there are people that are out there that you can get things done.
Mhm.
There is literally no
No
excuses
excuse.
not to do or
Mhm.
not to have something that is doing. And I will promise you this, a lot of your competitors, they won't do it. And that just gives
Mhm.
you an extra
Mhm.
advantage
Yep.
in the market.
I agree. When you build out these ads, are we also having, you said, that sounds like the five different ads. Do you go ahead and you create five different ad campaigns for these and then each of them again part of that different journey? Is that what we're
Yep.
doing?
It
Okay.
depends. It depends. Somebody that will come in and they'll say, okay, I really ideally would like to have start building at the bottom of the funnel,
Mhm.
right? When we say funnel, it's like, okay, you
Awareness.
guys can think about this thing coming here.
Mhm.
You're dropping people in the top and they filter through, right?
Mhm.
We try to start at the bottom of that, closest to the money. Okay. A lot of times we try to have 30 to $50. It depends on the industry and the things we're at, but 30 to $50 is what we try to start with at the bottom of the funnel
Mhm.
um, in order to get people to convert. That's the 3% of the market that's ready to buy at any given time. There's
Mhm.
still another 20% or so that's probably in the market, but they're not quite ready to buy. We really focus on that. Again, looking at that 80/20. What's the 20% that's going to bring in the revenue, right?
Mhm.
We start there. Very rarely, unless you just have a lot of locations, I'm not going to say that's impossible. Very rarely do we ever get a chance to build the entire funnel because it's a budget. It's a budget
Oh,
thing.
sure.
Like, because realistically, if you're going to do it and you're going to have it and facilitate the whole thing, you're probably going to have 100 to $150 a day, probably
Okay.
in your ad spend, which, when you're looking at 3,000 to 4,000 a month, and it's working for you,
Mhm.
then it's not, that's not really that big of a number in terms
Mhm.
of that part of it goes. However, what most people do is they get started someplace. So what we want to try to do is get the closest to the money, get started, start building our KPIs and start getting the ads ran and let the numbers tell us kind of where things are at. You may be in an area, for example, I'm here in Southern Ohio. In my area, I guarantee you our rates are going to be way less expensive than if I go to Columbus or Cincinnati.
Mhm.
Just one of those things, right? There's going to be less competition as well, for that matter. So, you know, all the metrics are going to be slightly different. I'm sure with the movers that you work with and the people that you work with is like, listen, they can be different. Like they
Mm,
can be all over the place depending on a variety of factors.
mm.
What we want to do is we want to get started at, and usually I'll start people from a test budget standpoint at about $1,500 a month
Okay.
and say, let's put this in place and let's see where the numbers, we have to see where this thing is going to go. And
Right.
then we'll start making tweaks based on that. Now, when you're working with somebody as skilled as Christine is, she can take a look at the numbers as things are coming through. Even if I'm running ads or if somebody else is running ads, we can say, oh, we're getting a 40% opt-in rate, but we're getting a 10% estimate rate out of
Mm.
those 40%. That's horribly bad. We can't, like, that is not going to work at all. How can we work through the process and how can you fix that? And I'm sure she will have suggestions for you of things
Well, that
that you
gets
can
me.
do.
What's a KPI? What's success in your, what would be considered successful ad in your opinion?
Most of the time, what we try to do when we're thinking is like, listen, I want to have 30, 25 to 30 good opportunities a month, right?
Mhm.
So what we want to try to do is, what does $1,500 get us? Now, let's just say, for example, we find out that the type of move, who we're targeting, like all those things
Yeah.
cost
So
you,
long distance is typically more expensive. You could
right?
pay,
Let's just say
you
it's
could
long
be,
distance. Let's just
yeah.
take this. Let's say that the lead costs $100 and
Hmm.
that's what we're seeing.
Hmm.
That means they're going to get 15 leads a month,
Hmm.
right? And this is good, actually a good segue into ad math because this is how we do
Yeah.
it. Um,
Head math.
Once we go through, we want to try to see, okay, so, and I'm just going to throw some quick numbers out here. Actually, Christine, I'll ask you, and you can tell me what some of the industry numbers are. If we had to say an average cross country move, what would an average move cost, give or take?
More, I'm more with a local, but I would say probably one of my clients are going to get mad at me. Probably about 5K to 10K. There's that big. It depends on distance. How big is the house? So
Okay,
it,
so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this just to keep the math
I say
easy, okay? Because
7,500 in between.
well, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bump it up to around 10. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
We're going to put $10,000. We get $10,000 per sale. How many of those do we want over the course of the month?
Hmm.
Okay. We have an $80,000 month goals. So we need
Right.
8 moves. Number
Gotcha.
one, can we move 8 people? Do we have
Yeah.
that capacity? Right. That's the very first question we need to ask ourselves. Do we have the capacity to do that?
Hmm.
Let's assume we do.
Hmm.
What we want to do from there is we want to backtrack and say, okay, now out of the number of people who come in to sell, how many people do we need to talk to that generates a sell? Right. So we're at a, let's just say again, to keep the numbers easy, a 50% close rate.
Hmm.
Right. So we need to talk to 2 people
Hmm.
in order to get a sell. Right.
Right.
We need to talk in order to get the 8 that we want. That means we're going to talk to 16 people.
Hmm.
Right.
Gotcha. Right.
We say 16 people. Okay. Now, how much is each of those people going to cost?
Mhm.
Right. So let's say it was the $100 per lead is what we're getting. So we're looking at roughly $1,600 is what we need in order to generate those 8 sales. Right. That's the way that we structure that to say, now here's your levers, right? Your growth levers is that if you increase the conversion rate from lead to sell, that's your that cost, acquisition cost is going to come down. That is actually the biggest number that I think people need to look at that they don't. How much did it cost for you to buy a customer?
Hmm.
That's your
Not a
cost per
lead, a customer. Hmm.
yes, that's your acquisition cost,
Right.
right? This is going to say, okay, how much did it cost me to buy a customer? Well, in that particular case, it was going to cost you $200 to buy a customer, right?
Mhm.
That's what you really want to be looking at because at that point you can say like, okay, Christina, I need 10 more sales a month. Okay, well, we know that we're going to have to talk to 20 people. So at $100 a pop. So I'm going to need another $2,000.
Yeah.
Right. Now that math isn't always going to work perfectly because there are ebbs and flows in the market when
Well, and then there's qualified lead versus, bad leads. Those are
correct.
That's the
Correct.
other issue we run
So
into. Oh, I
there's
got you 10 leads and half of them were bad. So we're only 5.
correct.
Yeah.
Well, what we try to do on that part is that a lead's a lead. Like, so here's the way that leads are done. There are
Mhm,
not good leads and bad leads.
mhm,
Okay. There are quotable and not quotable. That's it.
mm, okay.
Because you as a mover cannot control whether they're good lead, bad lead, they can't afford it, or any, like, whether you're running ads, whether you're having Christina do work for you, whatever. She can't control how much money they have or what their mindset is on
Right.
these moves or anything like that. They're either
I
quotable
can't
or they're
control
not.
if someone calls and they
Correct.
search for a long distance or they find your long distance move
Yep.
and their long distance, their mind is 2 blocks away. I can't control that concept in their
Correct.
head of long to them.
So,
2 blocks away is probably long distance,
yep.
or down the street or something. Was it a
Different terminology.
long
That's you
distance?
assuming that they
Yeah,
already know anything about moving
exactly.
altogether.
Half of
Right.
them is
So
the first
quotable.
time
So I
moving.
want you to write now, every mover, if you're watching this,
Hmm.
this is the definition shift. Quotable or not quotable. That's
Hmm.
it. Okay. So because at that point, that's the only thing you control. Now, if you go back, you've been in business long enough to have used the yellow pages. Now, this is going back to some of our old school guys, right?
Hmm.
Right. You couldn't control who called you out of the yellow pages. Like at some point we decided that, oh, well, this isn't a good lead because it's not a good phone call.
Because it's
Did you
digital.
call,
Yeah.
did you call your yellow page rep and be like, I keep getting all these bad phone calls? Like, no, you didn't. Like, don't just stop it. Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
So quotable, not quotable. So
Gotcha.
now that we've got past that part of it, is that's when you start. Now, I tried to give something that's a simplified version of the model so that if you don't know your numbers, you can put that in place and say, okay, watch the number of leads, what's my conversion rate, and how do I reverse engineer the math to know how much ad spend I need? That's really where I was trying to get to say, like, in order to get the number of sales I need. Now, if you don't know your numbers or you have no idea, well, guess what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to put this thing in play
Okay,
so
yeah.
that we can see what those numbers are. You have to buy some data to lay the foundation. This is kind of like built, building an ad system is kind of like building a house,
Mhm.
right? You've got to build a foundation first.
Yep.
You have no foundation, which means you don't know your numbers.
Mhm.
Got to do that first.
Mhm.
Sorry, I know we're going to run this for a month. We're probably not going to get an ROI on this. Your
Yep.
first month in any ad structure, running any ads at any time, your first month will always be your worst month.
Mhm.
Always.
Mhm.
Because people don't have the time. The algorithms don't have the time. There's not enough
Yeah, you have to train it.
opportunities
You
to
almost have
juice
to
it up.
train. Yeah, but that's
Right.
why it's important to put those conversions in so that, again, back to the success.
Yep.
So we tell Facebook this was a successful conversion.
Correct. So
Yeah.
we keep tracks of those things, but that's the ad math, is being able to walk that through the process. And then you start optimizing each of those steps. You people who are the business savvy ones,
Mhm.
if you want to make sure your cost per acquisition goes down, you may have a higher cost per lead. But if you put the number of rings that you answer on or a new script or some
Mhm.
things there, put an indoctrination sequence in after you send a quote so
Mhm.
that they get a couple things, be like, I like that place. I like those people. You start doing that kind of stuff and then you magically see your conversion rate go up. Well, guess what's going to come down? Your cost per acquisition, which is really the only thing that matters at the end of the day. If you're, how much did you buy that customer for? Now, a lot of times people don't do this. This is just kind of like an extra bonus for you, is that always have some kind of referral testimonial gathering place
Mhm.
and let people say, hey, you had a great experience. Do you know of anybody else who's moving at this moment that you can go through? Because for some reason or another, like there's always things that come up at the same time, and people are going to be talking to people about who moved what, whatever. Like all those little funny, it's how all those little conversations come together with other people, and you can probably increase using ads. You can increase your referrals, which is going to be super helpful. You can
Mhm.
increase a lot of other things as well through the process and goodwill.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Hey, another real quick. So just from the future of Facebook and kind of staying updated, what are your thoughts on what you're seeing coming down the pipeline for Facebook? I should say Meta. I mean, it's
Hmm.
not really Facebook ads, it's Instagram and Facebook all kind of
Yep.
combined. And each of them, I'm again, I wouldn't have to go down this path right now, but just they also have very different types of audiences.
Correct.
Most movers love Instagram, being it
Yep.
so visual.
Mm,
Facebook, they don't really think about. Most of the
yep.
Meta ads would be on Instagram. But what are your thoughts on what's happening with the meta universe when it comes to.
Yeah, I think that as their algorithms and their AI get
Mhm,
better,
mhm,
they're going to try to make it easier on people. Now, you already have the opportunity on your page right now. If you had something, you could boost a post. A lot of people use that. Now, I highly recommend you don't. You're a
really?
little more limited on the boosted side of things.
Mhm,
I say that that is Facebook's money button, right?
mm,
Or Instagram's money button,
mhm,
because they had to pay their shareholders somehow.
mm,
Like, for me, I on the back end of my system, or on the back end in your ads manager, you have so much more opportunities that you can decide more, right? And
right.
you can get more fine tuned. Now, for somebody like, listen, boosting it is probably better than not boosting it in terms of if you're not doing anything.
Visibility, yeah.
Yeah, because it's going to get you more visibility for
That's
sure.
all. Yeah. I tell
Um,
people if we boost anything, it's purely for eyeballs. Do not think
yep,
anybody's going to call you and none of that. This is purely to get more eyeballs in the area.
correct.
Because right now, when we post, nobody's seeing it. So that's all this is for.
Technically they consider that a page post engagement is what
Hmm.
the
Okay.
actual structure is. The whole goal of that is to get more comments, like, shares.
Yep.
Makes us feel good, right?
Right.
Makes us feel
Right.
good.
Yeah.
However,
It's a
that's
vanity
not
thing.
necessarily your revenue button. What we typically like to do whenever we're using different ad types, because you
Mhm,
asked me about that before. One of the biggest things I think that is coming down, and you can already do this now, is using AI tech. Like,
mhm,
you could give me your moving rates for the most part, and I
mhm.
could make AI, I could train bots to be able to give some of the initial quotes,
Sure.
like, or to answer some of those initial questions. I think what's going to happen is, and this is something that we're testing out right now in a big way, is to run Facebook Messenger ads. I think they're the most under leveraged ad type that you can use,
Mhm,
because it just generates you a Facebook Messenger conversation, or it could be in your Instagram DMs,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
It starts a conversation. Now, there's going to be several things, you run those things and they're like, oh, I didn't mean to click. It was an accident, whatever. You're going to get some of those things.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's no different than a phone call.
Mhm.
That text message that someone sends you is no different than a phone call.
Yeah.
Progressively, it's just people will text more and more and more. Like,
Mhm.
it's hard to get people on the phone because texting is so convenient, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And using Messenger allows you to do the same thing. Now, when you take that, hook it into some AI structures,
Mhm,
and systems,
mhm,
you're going to see a lot of good things. I think that happens that's going to help your service and your speed to lead
mhm.
very, very quickly. So right now, you've got your text versions that you can already do. They'll
Yep.
set appointments for you. It's like, hey, would you like to set a quick estimate appointment with one of our estimators?
Mhm.
Yes, I
That's
would.
yeah.
It'll give them the times available. It'll do all that stuff already
Yeah.
for you,
I'd love to
right?
test that out. We've got a tool to be able to do that. I just have to build that into the
I think
system
that
that we've got.
people get nervous about that for some reason or other.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, but I don't know if I'll be available. I'm like, just keep your calendar up to date, and
Yeah.
it will know when you're blocked off. Just keep it
Mhm.
up to date.
Mhm.
So you've got things like that with voice, AI assistants now. When you can combine those two, because now we can start using some voice AI assistants to make some phone calls that says, okay, we opted in, we asked for a quote. I want that to, so the way that we typically do it on our side is that we have a text message that goes out initially that says, hey, thanks for signing up for whatever it was. Is now a good time to talk? We'll have our intelligent AI assistant give you a call.
Mhm.
And if they say yes, perfect. If they say no, then actually have it schedule a call, right? Same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Then the AI assistant will make the phone call and it will say, hey, I just got a few questions for you. And before we patch you through to John, like, I'm John's AI assistant, and I
Mhm.
just got a few questions for you. What does that do? Allows us to qualify a few steps
Right.
before we live transfer John. And if they are good with that, then what's it going to do? It's going to live transfer the call to you. Now, if you're one of the guys that do not answer your phone,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter how much AI, it doesn't matter how much stuff that you do. If you let it go to voicemail,
Yep. I can't help you.
yeah, not good. No
I
bueno.
can't help you. No, I agree. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Did I miss anything? I think we got into pretty much oh, one short, quick question. What do
Yeah.
you see are some of the most common mistakes that people in the moving industry that you've seen that
Yep.
you would say, like maybe just five or less? Like these are the things, stop doing this.
Well, the biggest things is basically what I really just said.
Yeah.
There's going to be on the ad side
Mhm.
specifically, is not letting them run long enough, getting in and messing around with them every single day, because
Mhm.
once you get them started, they don't need to be messed with every day. Even for us, we run a lot of ads. They get checkups every 3 days, which
Mhm.
is just to make sure that things didn't go bunkers, right?
Right, right.
We
Something
we do that every
unexpected.
3 days, and
Mhm,
we'd make major changes once a week based on some of the things that we're seeing. And we're doing more testing, right?
mhm,
If you're going to run them yourself, do not overdo it,
mhm,
right? Because when it's your money, you will have a tendency to be like, oh, like
mhm.
it's all stressful at that point,
Right.
right? So don't do that. Number two, make sure that you have some sort of incentive or offer, right? When you're putting
Mhm,
things out. I would incentivize every step. Hey, when you like, it's no different than what a restaurant does. Like, hey,
mhm.
come in, get 20% off on your first meal, whatever. Like restaurants, I know are a little bit different because of the
I like
long-term
if you
value.
book before this Friday or you book before September 15th, you'll get
Yep.
10% off or something
You're
and
just
give
going
that kind of
to,
urgency.
and if you don't want to do a discount, say, hey, listen, we offer $100 money back guarantee, or we offer $100 guarantee that we'll
Yep,
show up when we said we would show up.
yep,
That
yep.
way you're only paying it if you're late. Just don't be late and you'll never pay it anyway. Right. I love
Right, that's
conditional
a good one.
guarantees. Like,
And
here's your
literally have a
conditional.
crisp dollar bill, like have a crisp dollar bill. Like
Yep.
it's not like you get credit. I'm going to
Correct.
literally hand you $100 crisp bill
If
and
I'm late.
show like the $100, into the
It's going
ad.
to turn into it's going to turn into the people with Domino's. You're so like, oh, Domino's. You're just like, they're
Yeah.
watching their time being like, I hope that they're late for my free pizza.
Right.
Right. Like you're going to have people sit there and be like, man, I hope they're late.
It's so true.
The thing is that you have warranties
Trip
and
them up.
guarantees that are in there that you can do. It's like number three, the other big mistake is using platitudes, right?
Mhm,
Don't words and phrases. So here's just two quick ways that you can kind of assess whether you're using a platitude or not.
mhm.
If I can look at something and say, well, I would hope so, that's a platitude. Like
Okay.
that's a platitude test number one. Number two, the scratch out writing test. If I can scratch your name out and write a competitor's name in and it works, um, that's like that you got something going on, right? So there's just two quick ways that you can go through to do that. Um, the other side is that I think giving the campaigns adequate budget, right?
Mm,
I
mhm,
don't care if you're working on Google or Facebook or any of that stuff right now. We're getting into at the time of this recording, we're getting into the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter is always going to be more expensive. Always going to be more expensive because people are running so many holiday ads.
mm,
They're trying to get ramped up for all the e-commerce stuff or whatever. That's all of your ad platforms are based on auctions, right? So they're just like, oh, the people who will spend more money, well, guess what? They get priority placement. It's going to push your cost up in order to stay relevant.
gotcha.
Um, just know that. Don't quit because it's higher cost. You know that going into it this time of year. The rest of the year, like you're probably going to be okay, but you need to be able to feed it enough budget to
Mhm,
make if you're going to try to put $10 a day on it
mhm.
like it's not enough.
Yeah,
I would bet you need to have $1,000 a month minimum, period.
gotcha.
In almost anything. If you're using Google, it's probably going to be more than that, right? And I'll let Christine talk about that. Christine will talk about that a little bit more as you go. But it's like, you need to make sure that if you're going to do it, you need to stick with it as well.
Right.
Okay. So
Cool.
you need to give it the time it takes for the algorithms and the things because they are smart. It is something that does work. I'm not, I being the type of person that I am, I hate like I like privacy and I like all this stuff, but the fact of the matter is, it is what it is at this point. They know who they're going after, and you got to give it enough time to learn the
Mhm,
process. So do not quit too soon.
mhm.
It's like that old cartoon of people that like you're mining for gold and you stop like
Yeah.
6 inches away from the gold vein. It's
Yeah.
like that's
I
kind of how it is. And
agree.
if you are going to try to do it yourself, try to find somebody.
Mhm.
Like, don't try to learn it yourself because you're like
Mm.
That's
I,
probably
you
that's
know,
probably the biggest
yeah,
mistake that I see. People try to do it
I'm
themselves and
learning
they
it
try to
myself.
learn it. It's like, listen, worst case comes to worst.
Yeah.
Worst case comes to worst. Hire a coach to help
Mhm,
you work you through the process because there's so much to it
mhm,
that you won't know what you don't know.
mhm.
Where I can sit down in about
So many
15
ways to
minutes, like
trip up
bang, bang,
along.
bang.
Yeah, there's so many different ways, and especially Facebook or Meta,
Yep.
so many different ways that it's crazy. I've seen them on Facebook groups where they'll share a screen and somebody go, "Oh, you chose the AI option, automatic da 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 da.
Yep.
That's why your ad looks like that." And it's like this minor little, boop, underneath, below,
Yep.
behind, and you didn't press the button.
Yeah,
It's
funny
insane.
enough, it's interesting because, to that point,
Mhm,
is that when you look at your audience, like when we go in and set up audiences now,
mhm.
it defers to the Facebook, or
Yeah,
it auto defaults to that. You
yeah,
can turn it off. So, but if you like the
yeah.
way the Facebook is set up right now, if you go in and run ads, you will not be able to choose people who are interested in a moving company.
Mhm, mhm.
You will have to go to your normal, you have to change the audience types and work through that so that you can use those audiences, because it says, oh, well, we know who you're looking for.
Mhm.
The
I would
problem is,
add another mistake people
mhm,
make is they forget to add tracking mechanisms.
yes.
So like they've now got UTM capabilities inside there. I don't know when they added
Mhm,
that. I just happened to notice that. And so if you don't understand how UTM works, you're not going to know on the other
mhm,
end what's working and not working. You can see it in the platform,
yep.
but that's their version. What's actually happening either from your from your CRM that you've been using to track people, but also in your analytics, that UTM is crucial. And that's always the thing I see is missing, is because they're like, I
Well,
don't see it. And it says I got a whole, 1,000 people came to my site, and it'll
yep.
show like paid organic or social organic, but those 1,000 people came from a paid because you didn't set up your UTMs right. So anyway, that's kind of where,
I'll tell you the last one, and
yeah.
we've talked about it at nauseum probably, is that you have to get back to leads within 5 minutes. I
Mm,
don't care. If it's overnight, it's one of those things. You can't really help out with that. But
mm,
they need like it. So you need to have a system to be able to get back with them as quickly as possible. Even if it's overnight, you need a system that will send them that text message and be like, hey, we got your thing. Somebody will give you a call in the morning.
mhm,
Right? You have to have those types of things in place, because if you don't, they will cost you business. Somebody who understands that will eat your lunch whenever they answer on one ring and then they just like,
mm,
or
mhm,
they get that lead and they're calling right now.
mhm.
It will happen that fast,
Right.
because people think about it this way, and think about how you, or for those of you who are watching, how you buy stuff. If you make a phone call, what happens if you don't get an answer? Or if you submit a form, what happens if you don't get,
Oh, it's the worst.
get, you go to the
Worst.
next.
Yeah. Oh,
The
100%.
cool, the bad thing about when people do that on Facebook, somebody clicks on your ad and they fill out
Mhm.
the information to get a phone call back or something like that.
Nothing happens.
They're immediately, and I'm talking like that,
No,
it's
no.
going to perk up the algorithm and be like, oh, this person is looking for movers. And they will start seeing ads like crazy for that particular thing. That,
Mhm,
go test it right now. If you get on Facebook, go click on an ad and see
mhm.
if you don't start seeing more of those same types of ads for different companies.
Oh,
It is wild. And
really?
that's how the thing works. You
Mhm,
have to make sure you get back with people fast,
mhm.
because they're going to start getting inundated with
Yeah, I we've
options.
tried to we've started changing the call to action to phone calls just because the forms just they
Mhm.
don't convert as well because by the time you call them back,
Yep.
and I tell people if you get a form, you got 3 minutes to call them
Yep.
immediately right back. If 15 minutes it's too late, the next day you can forget about it, they're gone. Because I was getting a lot of folks telling me, every time we call, nobody answers the phone. I'm like, yeah, they've already moved on. You
Yep.
have to call. I'm telling you, 3 minutes.
Well,
3 minutes.
Christine, I know that you've got a system that they can, that your movers
Yeah,
can
they can
get
do.
into
Yeah.
and that they can use. One of the biggest features of your particular system that I love
Hmm.
is the fact that somebody can fill out a form
Hmm.
and there's a feature in there that will make it call the business.
Yeah.
They press one to connect and then it calls the customer like that.
Yeah.
They don't have to try to go through and dial numbers and that, just press
Mhm,
one connect to connect.
mhm, yep.
It's
We
they
just have
call it
to
a,
we just have to get people how to use it.
yes. Well, that's a
It's
whole,
just different. It's a different way of thinking about
whole
marketing. It's
different
like,
story, but there is,
yeah,
Christina, for the things that people are looking for here.
mhm,
Christina is a perfect person to connect with to make sure that those types of things are happening as well, because I know that they've got so much experience within that.
yeah.
Highly
Thanks,
recommend
Josh.
if you're looking for that type of thing. And if you need help with that, they've got all sorts of options to where they can help you out.
Right back at you. How can people reach you?
Well, the very first thing that people can do is that you can always look me up on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Josh M. Wheeler, because Josh Wheeler was taken. So Josh M. Wheeler, send me a message on Messenger if you guys have any questions or anything like that. Our I'm not usually big on websites and that kind of stuff, but you can also email me if you would like to. It's going to be a slower response time than what Messenger is because it's on my phone. But you can go to josh@resultdrivensolutions.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate you.
Hey, hopefully it was super helpful. I know that I ramble a tiny bit. There's a lot to unpack there whenever we get into ads, but I
Mhm,
think those are the big things that if people can just take some of those things, take a few nuggets out and start applying today. Like, so
mhm.
for you guys who are listening, pick out a couple things, start applying stuff today, and then start getting yourself going. Because once you get eyeballs, you will start getting more phone calls, you will start getting more business. And that's really the only thing that we care about, is just making
Right.
sure that, that local economy continues to churn. I hopefully, again, at the time of this recording, hopefully they start reducing the mortgage rates, which means that things are going to fire back up, or reducing the financing rates.
2025. Come on, baby. Let's
Well,
get through this election
I've
year.
seen that they're going to, I've seen that the anticipated drop could be anywhere up
I saw that too.
150 points, which
Yeah.
is like crazy
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
But
It's been hard on movers this year. It was
I
real
think
hard.
anybody that has had anything to do with um, mortgages and
Mhm,
or refinances, like, so home
mhm,
services are running
mhm,
into the same problem. Whenever you get
mhm,
into, I'd say, home improvement are running
mhm,
into the same problem. Home services like HVAC and those kind of things, no
mhm,
problem.
mhm.
But if you require people buying houses and people aren't buying houses,
Yeah.
it's a tough business.
We've just been, and
Now's
we're hearing a lot of people recommending toward apartment complexes because people, if they're not buying a home, they're renting. And
Yep.
those rents are, that's a year lease. So get in with the apartment complexes. And most of them do. They've got a 4 or 5. Some of them, like in Colorado, he's got like, yeah, we got 50 of them. Like, damn, dude,
Well,
awesome.
now's the time to market. Now is the
Yes.
time not to rest on your laurels and be like, I'm just not going to do anything. This
Mm-hmm.
is the time that you're not going to set any records. You're not going to set any growth records marketing,
Mm-mm.
but it may just keep you from shutting your doors.
Yeah. And January comes around, February comes around. That's when it all starts happening. I really anticipate a good year for 2025. I think everything starts to calm down. Mortgage rates will start getting better. Yeah,
For you.
absolutely. Cool beans.
Ta-da!
Ta-da. Awesome. Thanks, Josh, again.
All
Appreciate
right.
you.
Yell at me
I'll be
later.
reaching
Okay.
out.
See ya.
Bye. Okay, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. That was Josh Wheeler from resultdrivensolutions.com. Reach him out there or on his Facebook account, Josh M. Wheeler. Look for him there. He's pretty prolific on Facebook, obviously, Instagram. Send him a message if you have more questions about Facebook ads. Feel free to reach us out at movingmarketingresults.com. Ask for some help if you need some. Here to be that person to kind of get you to the next level with your digital marketing. Thanks so much and appreciate you. Bye.